The next door neighbor. Our neighborhood was a typical rural Jamaican neighborhood. The houses were not very close, and the main source of income for most people was farming. Many persons had enough land to plant vegetables, while others reared animals such as pigs and goats. We were a small community, and as such, everybody knew everybody else's business. If you were curious enough or yearned to know about the current events in the lives of the people of Nain, you could just ask my neighbor, Miss Dee. She seemed to know everything. She was Nain District's newspaper and television station. She had the incredible ability to dramatize every district event, regardless of whether or not she was there. Because of our unfortunate adjacent position to her house, our family had no privacy. Consequently, all our private and not so private family affairs were transmitted throughout the district with much exaggeration. When my older sister Julia got pregnant in high school, Miss Dee was one of the first to know, and she would sing to all and sundry from her veranda that Hezekiah gal get pregnant for the Wacklis boy Andrew. It was her litany for days. My sister and I would sit on the veranda during her forced exile and look over at Miss Dee in astonishment as she ran around her house with a bucket of water, sprinkling and chanting, "Get behind me, O pregnant belly," in the hope that her granddaughter Justine would not pick up Julia's pregnancy virus. My mother was always kind to Miss Dee, despite her penchant to create trouble for us. And so, whenever my mother gets a barrel from her parents in England, Miss Dee would always know and is generally one of the first persons to present herself for some barrel goodies. My father, on the other hand, was not as accepting of Miss Dee as my mother, and he would not entertain her at our house. He made this very obvious when he built a high wall around our house with spikes on the top, supposedly to keep Miss Dee from prying into our business. We always found the thought of the rotund Miss Dee scaling the wall very amusing. On hot summer nights when we were younger, and we felt like having some adventure, we would arm ourselves with flashlights and war equipment, hoping to ambush Miss Dee as she scaled the high wall. It never happened, because her dog would sense our presence and howl suggestively at our side of the wall. Things came to a head one day when Miss Dee assaulted my father. He got so incensed that in the heat of the moment he decided to bring Miss Dee to court. He told all who would listen that he was going to sue Miss Dee for bodily harm. This was a big happening in our district. Never before had anyone gone to court for anything other than goat stealing. The first day of the hearing dawned bright and lovely. We went to the Mandeville District Court. The judge presiding was the Honorable Judge Karn, a formidable-looking man with a bulldog-like face. Our lawyer was Elizabeth Ferron, and Miss Dee's lawyer was a defense attorney named Mr. Harris. The preliminaries were long and drawn out, and totally unlike anything I had watched on television. There was no glamour, no excitement. I looked over at Miss Dee from my vantage point directly behind my father. She appeared to be sad and drawn. I was on the verge of nodding off when Judge Cairn called the prosecution to call his first witness. Miss Ferron called my father to the stand. After the swearing in, she asked, "Could you state your name for the record?" "My name is Hezekiah Daniels," my father said loudly. "What is your occupation, Mr. Daniels?" "I'm an electrician." "Could you tell us about the events of October 13? "Yes, ma'am. After a hard day of work, I was on my way home when my neighbor, Mrs. Dorothy Peters, stood on her veranda with a pot in her hand and asked me to stop. She asked me if it was true that Julia, my oldest daughter, was pregnant again. I told her in no uncertain terms to leave my family business alone and to attend to hers. What did she do then? She took off the pot cover, grabbed something out, and started to stone me with it. The missiles felt hot and hard. I was so stunned I could hardly move. What did she say while she threw the missiles? She called me. She said her dog has not been the same since he wandered over to my yard. Snickers could be heard from all sides of the courtroom. The judge hit his gavel and warned us to be quiet. What else did she say, Mr. Daniels? She said my wife was a mean witch who gave her nothing from the barrel when it came from England, and that we should all die in poverty and sin. In seeming objection, Miss Dee was shaking her head and whispering to her lawyer. What did you do while she was stoning you, Mr. Daniels? I stood and suffered the abuse for a while. I only ran when she flung the pot. It hit me in the back, and I have been unable to bend properly ever since. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor. The defense lawyer, Mr. Harris, rose and cleared his throat. On the evening of the 13th, did you stop at Miss Dorothy Peters' house? Yes, said my father. She asked me to stop. Aha! Exclaimed the lawyer, as if he had discovered something new. You stopped because Miss Peters asked you to. Would you then say that you and Miss Peters have a good relationship? It seems clear that Miss Peters regards you as a friend. Absolutely not, said my father, getting angry. It's only common courtesy to stop when somebody asks you to. Isn't it true, Mr. Daniels, said the lawyer, as he approached my father, that you love to converse with Miss Peters, but when it's your business in the grapevine, you become bitter and irrational and call her conversation gossiping? Objection, the prosecutor shouted, leading the witness, Your Honor. Sustained, said the judge. Let me rephrase that, said Harris. When Miss Peters asked you to stop and pose the question about your daughter, were you not angry? Yes, said my father. She's a gossip and a deceitful witch. Ha! Exclaimed the lawyer. You verbally abused my poor client, he pointed to Miss Dee, and we all looked at her. She hung her head and looked pitiful for the part. How can one abuse a senior citizen? The lawyer asked the court. The poor, defenseless senior citizen. He shook his head as if he could not understand. Mr. Daniels, he asked, could it be that you were attacking Mrs. Peters without cause and provoked the poor lady to self-defense? Objection, shouted the prosecutor. No further questions, said the lawyer before the judge could respond. My father stepped down from his seat with a noticeable slouch to his back. The prosecutor's next witness was Miss Tiny, another neighbor who had been passing by at the moment when the event occurred. Please state your name for the record. The name is Tiny Gordon, ma'am. Miss Tiny grinned, and her blackened teeth from years of tobacco smoking gleamed darkly for all the court to see. "Me can send greetings, please?" she asked, laughing and clapping her hands. "No, Miss Gordon," said the lawyer seriously. "This is a courtroom, not a talk show. Could you state your occupation for the court?" "Me's a pig farmer, me raise pig," she said, and then turned to the judge. "Your Honor, you look like a pork man. You love your pork, not true? Ma have a butcher shop out a road. Anytime you come and in, check Miss Tiny the pig lady. Me jerk pig, me bake pig, me fry pig, me even." The judge looked crossly at Miss Tiny and stopped her in mid-sentence. "Answer the questions that are asked by the lawyer, Miss Gordon. Nothing else." Miss Tiny turned to the court and said, "Him is a pig man for true. Only a pig man can serious, sir." And then started to laugh uncontrollably until tears rolled down her cheeks. After several failed attempts to settle Miss Tiny, the judge ordered a 10-minute recess. When the court session resumed, Miss Tiny was put once more on the stand. She was obviously reprimanded sternly because she began to act bashful by holding down her head and mumbling her responses. "Where were you on the evening of the 13th, Miss Gordon?" "I was going to look at Mass Jack Piglet them. Him live next door to Hezekiah." "Did you see Mr. Daniels?" "Yes'm." "Tell us what you saw." "Mr. Hezekiah is not a poor man. Him not support me shop." "What did you see, Miss Gordon?" The lawyer was clearly getting impatient. "Miss Dee started to throw things at him and call him a say how him wife mean. Me not think so, cause me get more than Irish soap when barrel come. Last year, me get one church frock. Did you see what was thrown, Miss Tiny? Yes, miss. Me see when Miss Dee throw the pot with a vengeance and it connect in a Hezekiah back and Miss Dee was laughing and holding up her titty them. What did Mr. Daniels do? Him fall down when the pot lick him and then get up and run. Him shout to Miss Dee and tell her say him a go call the police because she assault him. Do you mean assault, Miss Gordon? Yes, miss. No further questions, said the prosecutor. The defense lawyer cross-examined Miss Tiny but got nothing more from her. She stuck to her view of the event and occasionally advertised her butcher shop, much to the lawyer's frustration. The prosecutor called my mother to the stand and several other witnesses, all of whom supported my father's case. The prosecution rested. The defense's only witness was Mrs. Dorothy Peters. Could you state your name for the record? Asked the defense. Mrs. Dorothy Mavis Peters, Miss Dee said, looking dignified. What is your occupation, Miss Dee? I'm a retiree, sir, but I raise chicken and sell. Most people prefer chicken over pork, she said, looking at Miss Tiny and cutting her eyes. Mrs. Peters, is it true that you assaulted that man over there? Asked the defense lawyer as he pointed at my father and looked at him in distaste. No, sir, said Miss Dee loudly. What happened, Mrs. Peters? Asked the lawyer, his voice sounding mild and caressing, as if he were talking to a fragile child. Me stand up on my veranda with my pot in my hand. I was viewing the district and wondering why we all can't live as one. Then my mind drift on the one Hezekiah, and I wonder how one man can have so much war in him heart. What was in the pot, Mrs. Peters? Some dumpling that me did cook, but my grandpickney them never want them, said that them too tough. What were you doing with them at the time? I was about to throw them out when I saw Hezekiah coming. I decided that since him passing, me go just wait till him gone for throw them out. Then what happened? Hezekiah stopped and asked me out of the blue how me so nosy in him business. I was irate, Your Honor, she wiped the corner of her eyes with a red handkerchief. From me born, me no spread news pon nobody. Is people confide them business and tell me. All me asked Hezekiah was if him big girl pregnant for Sorefoot Andrew, that's all. She looked bewildered at the judge and then at the lawyer. The lawyer approached the stand. Don't cry, Mrs. Peters. Just calmly tell us the rest of the story. Well, she sniffled. A piece of temper take me. And me start dash with the dumpling them. It's not my fault that Hezekiah stand up in the way. She started to bawl. It's 9 pitney me grow. And all of them they are foreign. Me's a poor old lady, me no fast in a nobody business. Her lawyer calmed her down and she hiccuped. Her face was blotchy and swollen. When me was ready to throw out the last dumpling, me trip and fall and the pot slip out of my hand just like that. If Hezekiah was minding him own business, him would have never get in the way. No further questions, Your Honor, said her lawyer and sat down. The prosecutor got up to cross-examine. If you did not feel malice toward Mr. Daniels, why then would you call him names? I did not call him names, said Miss Dee. I just told him that since my dog Sheba went over to his property, things have not been the same. And it's a standard fact that him wife get barrel and not share it up with nobody. Every time she get barrel is the one little Irish Spring soap she gimme. Them too mean, she hissed. And for things say, pig loving Tiny get church dress and me not get none. Them go on like them better than people too much and yet still our big gal go hook up with Sorefoot Andrew. No further questions, Your Honor, the lawyer said smugly, putting a stop to Miss Dee's bitter diatribe. It was no surprise that after the closing arguments, the judge ruled in favor of my father. Miss Dee had to pay all his doctor's bills and made a solemn promise to leave my father alone. We all piled up in the country bus and returned to our district. Everyone was strangely subdued. I guess we were all thinking the same thing. Sometimes it's best not to be too meddlesome. Up to this day, if you come to Nain District, Miss Dee is still the neighborhood gossip, but the Daniels family is unsurprisingly left out of her gossiping. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, and subscribe. Check the description box for more stories and find my books on Amazon. See you in the next story.